Hey everybody, welcome. I'm
Hello.
Joseph Goodman, publisher of Goodman Games, and I'll pass it off to Brendan to introduce himself.
Hello, I am Brendan LaSalle, and I am the creator of Xcrawl and the staff writer for Goodman Games.
Hey, and I am Chris Doyle sitting in for, I guess, Mike, probably, the director of product design and development on the 5E side at Goodman Games. Hey, everybody.
How's it going, guys?
Fantastic.
Yes,
So,
great.
who's tired from Gen Con?
I'm so tired.
A little bit. So,
I
Yeah,
need a nap. I need another
as
nap.
you get older and older, it seems to take more and more days to recover.
it's
Or
sad
we
but
just do
true.
more and more. I swear, we do so much now at Gen Con, it's incredible.
Could be it. That could be it.
Yeah.
Yeah, this will be forever be for me the Pinball Odyssey year of that. When we dropped the last machine off on Sunday night, it was like I could literally feel myself level up. I was like, it's like a little
So
teaser.
for those of you who don't know, we brought pinball machines to Gen Con. So we had three. We had Swords of Fury, Gorgar, and why am I blanking on the other one? Swords of
Centaur,
Fury,
Centaur.
Centaur.
Centaur. Yeah, at the booth, which was amazing. But you have to get them there somehow and get them away from there somehow. And Brendan drew the short straw. It also happens to be big and strong. So he was in charge of the crew to move the pinballs. How much did they weigh, Brendan? About 250 each, he said.
Not 250, but the thing is, they're 250, awkward and splintery.
Oh
Um,
no.
and so I got a sweetheart. I can see it. I can see it under the flesh, and it's gonna have to wear off. You know what I'm saying? So I got a bit of the actual 70s like riding around in my finger, even as we speak.
Well, I mean, the
So
real question is, does it affect your pinball game or your flipper finger is still intact?
honestly, when we first got that Gorgor machine, I put in about a solid rock and roll half hour at dude's house when we were testing it out. I barely played at the show, like 5 minutes on
I
setup day until
know.
I got a talking to.
Well, we had to leave
So
it for the consumers. Wait, so now we can
yeah,
tell the story. Now that everybody's
yeah.
seen the do you want to tell the story of how
Um,
Gorgar came to be?
Absolutely. So the so Joseph calls me up on like about 6 months ago. Joseph calls me up and he's like, "Hey, I got a mission if you're interested." And I'm like, "Yeah, sure. Let's. What can I do?" And he's like, "I need you to go and would you be willing to go to St. Louis and pick up a pinball machine from this guy?" And I'm like, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah. Also, I need you to, yeah, I need you to like do it tomorrow." Like, so,
Dude, it's hard to get a Gorgar. Like, there's only so many out
yeah,
there
no,
that
no,
fast.
I get it. They're not making any more Gorgar machines, and the guy needed it like to move on Friday, so we left on a Thursday. I want to say drove all day. Me and Steve Gaiski, and we spent the night. Went to his house. This guy had like I say 60 pinball machines, every one of them fresh. Every one of them, these great old 70s machines, all in his house and in his garage. He showed us how to break it down after the aforementioned half hour of rocking it out and playing some games, and then brought it back here. And then so for the convention, I had to go rent a truck, take that one, go to Louisville, get part two because Dieter had one. Get Dieter's Centaur machine, bring them, deliver them, and then the next like day go to Fort Wayne and get machine three. So it was just exciting. I feel like I'm ready to like start my own pinball machine moving, concern. You know what I'm saying?
You
Like
know,
I'm
it's
ready
a
to.
niche, but if somebody out there needs it, you know.
I'm your boy. And the low price is negotiable. We'll talk about it. So
Well, so and the best part was Dr. Pinball. When we got to Indy, turns out that 45-year-old pinball machines are, they break a little bit. So when we got to Indy, Gorgard worked perfectly when Brendan, was playing it, in St. Louis. But by the time it got to Indy, something went wrong. Elena actually turned out to be an amazing pinball magician and fixed a
the
number of
tech.
things. But it got to the point where, yeah, pinball tech, where it got to, I don't know if tech is the right word. It's not exactly technology. It's like pinball janitor,
Retro
pinball
tech.
retro
Retro
tech.
tech.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And but unfortunately, we had a blown fuse and some stuff that was a little beyond our skill set or her skill set. So Aldo looked it up, and there's a dude in Indianapolis named Doctor Pinball, and he fixes pinball machines and makes house calls. He made a house call,
Or,
picked up Gorgar,
or
took it to his
convention calls? How did you get him in the
convention calls.
hall without a badge?
There's techniques. And the best part was he said on the phone, he's like, I could bring my like satchel or whatever out there to like fix it, but if it's like a major problem, I need to bring it back to my shop, because in his shop he said something like, because I got like 30 other machines I scavenged for parts, and I forget the word he used, but basically he could custom manufacture obscure pinball parts using some sort of machine he had. And he's like, so in the shop, I can fix basically anything that's wrong with it. So we were like, come get it, make your house call, and take it to the shop. So Dr. Pinball restored it to fully functional condition.
So thank you, Dr. Pinball, wherever you are.
Yes. And actually, we should probably mention the reason we're here today is Xcrawl. I think we're all so tired we forgot to mention that.
I know, right? Yeah, this is the last hour of the Xcrawl Classics Kickstarter, an event that I've been, my life has been building up for many years. So, so huge thanks to everybody for tuning in and for pledging and for being a part of the Kickstarter and for helping us unlock all kinds of crazy stretch goals and for letting me sort of like, letting this arc of my life reach a wonderful conclusion that I'm very, very happy with. So huge thanks to everybody for out there for being a part of it, for supporting, for all your suggestions, for being what do you call it? For just being a part of everything.
The Xcrawl story.
The Xcrawl story, and it's been huge. And I'm absolutely floored at the response, and just super grateful.
Yeah, Brendan. I mean, we figured we'd tell a little bit of the Xcrawl history here, and I'm sure a lot of backers have heard this before. And by the way, if you're tuned in and have no idea what we're talking about, go to Kickstarter. Actually, maybe we can drop the link in the chat and look up Xcrawl Classics, because it is an awesome. Hold on, let me find the link here. It's an awesome game, and actually, you know what? I'm gonna drop it here. If somebody can drop this in the chat, yeah. Xcrawl is actually, Brendan, why don't you tell everybody about Xcrawl? What is Xcrawl? Just in case there's somebody watching this who has no idea what we're talking about.
Yeah, for your first, this is your first time. So imagine that your standard fantasy world, the fantasy world that has dragons and wizards and gods that become directly intermeshed with the affairs of man, that grows up and becomes our modern media saturated world. And now the Xcrawl takes place in the North American Empire, where there are still all those elements. There are still monsters that are out there. There are still people who can use magic. There are still brave warriors and all of these things. And in a like a bid for nostalgia, like looking back to the classic time of the the adventuring period, and in order also to make a ton of money online, and also to distract the masses with a bread and circuses style event that keeps them from being overworried with their terrible lot in life, the Emperor creates Xcrawl, which is dungeon crawling live on television in artificial dungeons. They have a DJ, your dungeon judge, who creates a dungeon. They load it up with all of the things that you would expect from a regular dungeon: monsters, traps, hazards, riddles, puzzles, secret doors, the whole 9 yards. And then also adds like game show style elements to it to make it very interesting to people watching, bring it over the top, and make it just a really crazy kind of a spectator sport with almost like an endless array of different kind of challenges that you can put together. Challenges, they don't have to be organic at all. They're in a typical dungeon, you have to figure out, well, how did that monster get there? Why is that monster there? Why are these monsters working together that wouldn't typically do it? Xcrawl, that's all out the window. A bunch of guys in suits made the decision, and now you're having to fight a bunch of hobgoblins with glass globes filled with brown ochre who were riding on sphinxes or whatever. It just just something nutty like that, because they had all that. They got them cheap. They knew a sphinx guy. They made it happen. So now you're dealing with that out there in the arena. So there's been multiple iterations of Xcrawl. In the latest version, the best version is Xcrawl Classics, which is really just like I said, it's been an absolute labor of love for me, adapting the setting I love to the Dungeon Crawl Classics rules.
That's awesome. So, Brendan, I know you've encountered, Chris, I know you've encountered Xcrawl before. Tell me about the first time you came across Xcrawl.
All right, so the one and only time I have come across Xcrawl, I believe it was Gen Con 2009. I'm not exactly sure of the year, but I think it was. Pretty sure it was when 4E came out and we were kind of like looking for alternatives. And we all went, I think we went back to your room, Joe, in the Embassy Suites, and a bunch of us designers played an Xcrawl game, and Brendan was the game master. And first of all, if anybody who is listening to this has not had Brendan as a game master, you need to check that off your bucket list, because I'm telling you, I learned so much that day
Thank you.
from the master, from the DJ master, I would say, which
Thanks
is
very
great.
much.
But Xcrawls, it's not really the game that really appeals to me, but we had such a blast that day. That night, I think it was actually. I mean, it was bust your gut kind of laughing kind of thing. We were just, I remember there were mummies. I think there was undead checks and fails or whatever. There was something with that. I mean, it was just crazy off the wall. We just had a great time. And then that was 2009. That was the last time I played it. And to be honest with you, when I found out that we were doing Xcrawl, I was like, ah, yeah, Xcrawl, I remember that, haha. But then when I saw the artwork and I saw everything that was going into the Kickstarter page, building the Kickstarter page and everything, and then hearing the lore and just hearing the evolution of where Xcrawls come from and where it was going, I have to admit, I want to play. I'm like, when this comes out, I am totally down with playing Xcrawl. And it's like, like I said, not normally my cup of tea, but I mean, you look at that artwork just gets you into the game, and it sets all of your expectations for what the game is going to be about. And I think Brendan just summed it up perfectly. Was like, it's like, dungeon ecology, be damned. Like, this is just kooky, crazy stuff all thrown together, and would make just an amazing tournament. I think also, like, the tournament experience that Xcrawl could bring at a big convention of, say, 70,000 people. I mean, just think about that for a minute, on just how cool that could be. So I'm in. I mean, if I still have my foam finger. Oh, I should have dug that out.
I got a
I still
couple.
have
I
my
think they're in
foam
the
finger.
garage. They're
Oh,
around here somewhere.
yeah.
For
So
those of you who don't know, for Xcrawl in years past, for Gen Con, we do like this foam #1 fingers you see at sporting events, but we'd have like Xcrawl for it on the side, and we did it twice, I think. And actually, the main thing I remember about that is the foam finger companies, the way they ship those to you. You remember those things that are like a Pringles can with like a snake full, and it like bounces out? They somehow like stuff like 20 of these foam fingers compressed into the box. So when you open them, we ordered like 100 or whatever. You open the box, it's like foam
nice.
fingers come flying out.
Was that what the infamous nunchucks were for Xcrawl also, when you were trying to sell those at the booth and we got like
Now,
shut down?
we didn't get shut down. We just had to follow the
Oh,
safety protocols. Hold on, where my nunchucks go? I had to put them out of sight because I don't want the kids playing with nunchucks. I mean, there's
yeah,
certain
I
things
think
you do
that
as a
was.
publisher.
He's got him. He's got him.
Now this is just. I mean, we obviously needed nunchucks just to have nunchucks.
Okay.
Yeah, this was just to have nunchucks. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
These
nice.
are actually the rare printer prototypes that don't have the logo printed on them. 1 in a million, guys. But then somewhere I have my actual. Yeah, Brendan's got the actual.
There
If
it
Zoom will
is.
cooperate. Yeah.
Yep.
No, this is actually. I don't know. I was going through a Bruce Lee phase, and then we did official DCC nunchucks for the booth, which it turns out you're not allowed to sell weapons at Gen Con. I mean, who knew? So we had to point out that they were props, and then there were all these rules. They had to be shrink wrap with a sticker, and the sticker had to say something like, "You're not allowed to open this thing exhibit hall, and don't like hit your friends." Or there was like official verbiage we had to put on there.
No nunchucking, was as I recall how it went. It's in
I
their
technically that'd
charter
be
for.
none nunchucking.
I don't know.
Non-nunchucks.
Anyway, but you're onto something, Chris. Maybe Brendan, we should do the official Xcrawl nunchucks next year, because I mean, the Chuck Whalen's art does have the dragon on a jet ski with nunchucks.
Yeah,
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah,
Or
I
maybe
mean,
we
you
just
could-
bring jet skis to Gen Con next year.
that's true. It's awesome. Jet skis or nunchucks.
Y'all don't have to talk me into any of that. Yes, let's do it. You know, of course, you know who's getting the jet skis, right? Muggins. You know what I'm saying? It'll be like me. I'll be driving to Orlando and Jacksonville, bringing them up. So
That's pretty funny. Yeah, so Xcrawl is it's a wealth of history. I want to say it's been 20 years, Brendan. Do you remember the exact first publication date? It's probably 19, 20 years.
The 2002 was the very first publication. I want to say like maybe September of 2002, I think was the original publication, as I recall. Yeah. So originally, Xcrawl was my home campaign. I just, I told the story before online, but, I had, we were, it was the very beginning of the third edition thing. And like the Dungeons and Dragons third ed had just come out. I had all of those books. I hadn't run Dungeons and Dragons in years. I had completely switched it up for like Champions and for I played a lot of Vampire back then. And I was so excited about the new edition. It was like, oh, it was like all we did. I had this little gamer house, like 4 of us. It was so great. We gamed so much. We eventually had to have a house meeting and be like, why do we have cable? Why are we paying for cable TV? We do not watch. We roll dice every night, so we turned that off. So it was amazing. So then the third edition Star Wars came out. Remember when the
That's
Star
right.
Wars?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was, you could totally cross it all over. It was like, when like that like cranked up every gear in my head. Like, well, what else can we do with this? What other kind of stuff? And it started making me thinking about we should create something that would go along with this. It's the licenses out there. And I had this vision one day on the bus, literally picturing like a fighter standing there with like a digital clock stuck on the inside of his shield. And he's like talking to his buddy, the thief. He's like, you better hurry up. We're going to get disqualified. The guy's like, oh, give me a break. I'm working here. And like, it was like, I created Xcrawl to make that scene happen and to kind of like canonize my style of running games, which is, had all the things that I liked and didn't have any of the things that I hate about role-playing games, like trips to the store and, like trying to motivate my players to go to this exciting dungeon I just paid $10 for. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's your job now. So, so when we moved back, I was in Seattle. When I moved back to Georgia, Pandahead Publishing had begun, and they were doing role-playing game stuff. And I was like, well, let me come over and run a game for y'all, and let me see what you did. So Brett and Allison Brooks and some of their other friends, I went over and I ran Xcrawl for them. And, leaned into it. And that next day he was like, yeah, we want to do it. I'm like, great. And he's like, we need 90,000 words by, like in 6 weeks. It was like, what? How many words? Are there many words?
At least he didn't want a pinball machine to go with it.
I didn't have to go around, it was its own thing. So, but yeah, it was its own kind of odyssey, but a good odyssey, and I learned a lot. And gosh, what I wouldn't give to go back and like take it like my modern brain editing and like fix that first book, because boy, they say like they tell you shouldn't do a thing you should do a thing like if you wait till you're ready, you'll never get there. I was not ready. Yeah, and I just had to kind of like learn to be ready. So so that version came out in 2002. And we did that for a while, took it out, just took it all over the place, did every convention, every store appearance we could. And
so I got to jump in. That's where I met you, because that was the Alliance open house.
Alliance open house.
2002, maybe 2003. I don't remember.
2002, 2003. And I was already a big Goodman Games fan. You had Brontosaurus Rex out, and I was like, this guy gets it. This guy's the same thing that I'm doing, like American-based fantasy, and treating a very ridiculous thing very seriously. Like we were like lockstep. So I went over. There was a booth like catty corner to us, and he had like the covers of a bunch of the early the Goodman Games products, just like pinned to the curtain back there. And I'm like, I'm just gonna camp out here till he gets here. And I'm like, hey, you're from Goodman Games. I love Goodman Games. I'm doing this, and it was Goodman Games. It was Joseph himself, Yeah.
And then I remember the other thing I remember about those early cons, because Pandahead, Brett from Pandahead, for those of you who don't know, Brett handles our website along with Bill, but Brett and I have worked together in different capacities for decades now. But Brett had Pandahead at the time, and he also ran a comic store, which was another story. Great store, by the way. But remember those amazing booths you did, Brendan? He had those like Roman columns that he like a lot of the ziggurat, the stuff that I've done is really kind of inspired by what Brett did way back in the day, because he had very distinctive con booths in a way that nobody else could compete with.
Yeah, our booths always looked fantastic. Brett and Allison are like the ultimate booth team. They're so good, and they, it went really well. It went really, really well those early years. And then like everything else, the D20 bust happened. You know what I mean? And they went on to do other stuff, and but at this point, you and I had connected, and you brought me on to do just some regular writing for the DCC line, and that
Sunless
event,
Garden.
Sunless Garden, yeah.
Yes. A classic.
Which is great in and of itself. Also, the one that I'm sure you know the story. Harley saw that on a bookstore shelf in like Utah or Colorado or somewhere, and was like, "This is cool," and that's what caused him to send us a cold submission for what became number 17.
You sure he wasn't in an ER somewhere with a busted forearm or
He
something?
probably was. More skateboarding accidents.
Yeah,
it probably was. Yeah,
it could have been, but yeah. So that led to Goodman Games licensing Xcrawl, which I think it was 2006. And the first adventure was Necromerica, was the first one you put out, and it had that was our first association, and also first time Brad McDevitt did any art for it, and Brad and Xcrawl, you know what I mean? Or like this, you know what I mean? He's been a huge influence on it, and Brad instantly got Xcrawl. There's a lot of artists I've had to sit down with and go, well, see, here's why you wouldn't do that, and Brad, oh yeah, I get it, boink, just like he does, so big shout out. That was fantastic. And then so we did
and actually, Brendan, I gotta say something. Obviously, I'm a fan of dungeon crawls. Xcrawl from the very beginning was to me just a really cool explosion of the idea of dungeon crawls. Dungeon crawls are always inherently limited by ecology and a certain logic, and Xcrawl breaks all those rules in a way that makes sense inside its own universe. And from the very beginning, I was like, this is dungeon crawling, but at a whole other level where you can manufacture these incredible encounters, and it's really it breaks all the rules in just the right way. So I was really happy to be able to finally publish Xcrawl, because from the beginning I've been a fan. It was just a really cool concept.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm waving somebody, the people in the chat room. That was ridiculous. Hey, everybody in the chat room. I'm trying to get everyone.
What's up, chat?
I'm waving to you all. Drew Gable asked in the chat room, did Xcrawl have a name before it became Xcrawl? And yeah, the original, when I first presented it to my players, I told them it was Extreme Dungeon Crawl, and that was the original title of it. And I think Xcrawl was like between sessions. I thought, oh, they'll call it Xcrawl, obviously, because the X Games, that was the real.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. Remember, they still have those Red
I
Bull.
think they still do. Actually,
I'm sure they do.
They still do. Yeah.
Jumping over alligator pits.
Never goes away. It just goes on to channel number 9,000 on the TV.
It goes on to the Ocho. Goes on to the Ocho.
The Ocho. Absolutely. So there actually were 4 versions of Xcrawl. Okay, so there was the original 3.0 version. Okay, there was. After that, I was like, I'm going to write my own system. And I did. And I turned it in. And Joseph, I got a check. And it was like, hey, here it was done. And then Joe was like, you know what? If you do this for Pathfinder, you'll sell 4 times as many copies. And I was like, well, we're going to Pathfinder. So that edition, not only is it has it never seen the light of day outside of playtesting, it's actually been lost. I lost it in a computer crash before I knew about backing stuff up. So that one's gone. But then, and then there was a Pathfinder version that came out, and we did 3 years working on that, really getting good at Pathfinder. I always tell the story of the year that they announced 5e. Dwayne Waldrop and I, my brother-in-law, my creative partner, we made up flashcards of Pathfinder rules. So we really would get them down like this, and it was like, oh yeah, and then also there will be no more Xcrawl Pathfinder,
Sorry, man.
No, it wasn't you. Retailers stopped carrying third-party Xcrawl stuff.
No, I know. It's a cycle of D&D.
Yeah,
it's been how many years? Only 2 editions from 1974 to 1990 something.
Yeah,
and then and now it's. So by the way, you remember Alan Fishman? My old friend, college or high school gaming buddy, and you met him at Gen Con. Guess where I was introduced to AD&D 2nd edition?
Oh, was it at Alan Fishman's house? No.
Alan's bar mitzvah. Technically, one of his relatives gave him the player's handbook of 2nd edition for a bar mitzvah gift. And I was like, this looks cool. Can I borrow this? And I still have it on my shelf. Alan,
Alan Fishman, Mazel Tov. Congrats.
Yeah, I think he bought another one. I got to give it back to him. Anyway,
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
I hope
My
your
point is
present
we
to
would-
him was better.
oh, I'm sure it was. I was 12 or 13 or whatever too.
Yeah.
But we went
Yeah.
so many years without, with hardly any edition change, and now in the
Yeah.
last 15 years, it's like constant
Yeah.
churn of new editions.
Oh yeah, and it didn't feel like, honestly, even second edition didn't feel that different to me until the Powers and Tactics book came out. That was a sea change, and that was where, like I got addicted to making a character. Like I finally got to make my Ranger, the Ranger I'd always imagined, where got rid of spells and got a couple of key thief skills so I could actually move silently and like hide in shadows in a dungeon. Oof. So anyway, so yeah, and then we kickstarted the Pathfinder edition in, I think, 2014 it came out. And then a year later, it was like, hey, Joseph and I, we met at that breakfast place over right there by the IRC. And Joe was like, I can't do any more Pathfinder Xcrawl. And I was like, oh, and like, it was like, it didn't even sink in. And I was like, well, could I do a DCC version? And he was like, I was hoping you would say that. I was like, yes, indeed. So started working on it then. And like what I did, I don't know how I got character sheets. I don't remember this part of the story. Like, did I print them that day? Or I feel like I must have just had a fat stack of DCC guys. So I went to every DCC game I had. That was Gen Con. That was literally the Thursday morning of Gen Con is when you told me. My first game was at 9 a.m. And I was like, hey, would you guys mind if we ran this with the DCC rules? And everybody was like, yes. I want to say Troy Tucker was in that first game, as I recall. And it was like, let's just see how it goes. And boy, was it nuts. It was like, and it was a particularly crazy adventure. You know what I mean? Like the first room was like, there were all these prize cars that you could win. And then two cavemen came in on a mastodon and were crushing the cars. So you had to stop them before they
Hold on, we should have made that one of the stretch goals. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I can't find it.
Was that? I don't remember that.
I don't. You know what? It was one of the things. I only ever ran it with the original DCC rules and the DCC classes and character, like the spells. So it was so over the top. Like, so the very first dungeon, someone did like a sleep spell, and like I'm like, oh wow, that's going to go everyone in 500 yards. And I had to think like, oh yeah, that's the audience. That's the guys on the highway in front of the audience, in front, like beyond the parking lot. Like it was like, oh, that's gonna get everybody,
Wait, Brandon, we got, according to my computer, we got 32 minutes left in this Kickstarter. We're at 2:35:10. I feel like we should work in one last stretch goal, which is the what would you call this? The Mastodon
car crush room. You want to do it? I'll do it.
Yeah,
if we hit where are we at here? 235, say 240.
Sure, that sounds good.
240.
There's already some other stretch called 240, but if we get 240,
so
Mastodon
what about 1,600 backers?
Oh, that's even better. Even better. 1,600 backers. I'll totally do that. So it had one more element, and that was Velociraptors in his little biplanes that were coming down and crashing at you.
Biplanes.
I don't want to leave that out.
I thought the Velociraptors were in gliders. How many versions of like flying Velociraptors have you done?
I really like Velociraptors. Well, to me, whenever I do that, that's a shout out to Dinosaur Planet. That's you know what I mean? Like, I always have smart Velociraptors and things because I love Dinosaur Planet, which I was really I was so excited about Brontosaurus Rex when it first came out. And so I do, one of the things about Xcrawl is that because of how it is, I just pack it with in-jokes and little tributes and things.
Yeah.
Most of them, if you see a name in there, it's probably somebody I know or somebody I gamed with. Referees, paramedics, they're all people I hung out with. I reference bands, songs.
I have to go deep down into my dinosaur nerd phase, which I've forgotten half of this because this was like 20 years ago. But, technically they weren't Velociraptors in Jurassic Park. It was the Deinonychus, if I remember correct.
Yeah.
Which is a different kind of animal than they call it, because nobody wants to say Deinonychus. So they've called it Velociraptor. So anyway, I just had to make that point. I'm done.
No, that's fair. I had somebody call me out on it at a game of Dinosaur Planet that I ran at Game Hall one year. And they were like, are these real dinosaurs? And I was like, lady, one casts spells. The one's got a gun. Just, you know what I mean? Accept the premise. Accept the premise that we'll be friends and move on forever. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, Son of Albion says you can't find it, but you can remember it. Can you rewrite it for Xcrawl Insider? Absolutely. It was prize cars.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, great
dinosaurs.
idea.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing was, it had like the two cavemen on top of it. There was a ranger and a sorcerer, and they were like just brutalizing people. And like I actually remember thinking, oh, we'll do a spell duel today. And it said blew up the whole, the DCC spells as written blow up Xcrawl. They just make it's too cosmic.
Yeah.
The high level of like, oh, I do a fireball that can go 1,000 miles. Can I go hit the DJ's house? You know what I mean? Like that 100% came up. You know what I mean? And it's like, oh man. But if we can't, we'll if it doesn't make a stretch goal, we'll do it for Xcrawl Insider. Y'all remind me. Word of bond. I literally have no idea where that might also I don't remember any of the rest of that dungeon. So Troy Tucker, if you're out there, or anybody else who happened to play with me at that time, we improv'd it with DCC rules. I had to make up monsters on the fly because I didn't have any of that stuff made up. It was just, like, oh, it's got a armor class. I don't know, 15. Write down 15. So I guess you hit. But yeah, that was a fun one. And I love the idea that like there were your prizes, and here are my guys like crushing stuff up. And there was one of the cars was like there was one car that was rugged, so I trapped it. So like if because someone's gonna go, I'm gonna jump in that car, crank it up, and hit the dinosaur. Yeah, I did do that.
Wow.
That's great, man. That's so good.
But I don't remember anything else of that whole dungeon. I ran it like literally 7 times at that Gen Con.
So that was the beginning of what became Xcrawl Classics, like the first sort of loose play test.
Yeah.
And then, as you mentioned in you wrote about this in the Kickstarter, but you basically finished the manuscript in February of 2020.
Yeah. Which is here it goes. Let's do a Kickstarter. What do you want to do? Next month after? And then suddenly it was COVID and lockdowns and online conventions and my COVID hat. Lori
made your COVID hat?
Yeah, Lori. I when I wear headphones, my hair goes and it looks ridiculous in any state. I just don't have that kind of hair for headphones. So this is my Lori made this for me for the early sessions. And here's a fun fact. I have the absolute largest head size that you can still get a standard size hat for. And when Lori measured my hat, she said, and I'm quoting here, Jesus. Big head. Anyway, so that's it. And that was like, so we didn't Kickstart it then, but I kept playing it and kept running it and kept testing it. And I really feel like those extra 3 years were not wasted. Like a lot of things got cleaned up. A lot of the adventure ideas clarified. It's a way better thing. So didn't work out great for me. Didn't work out great for, in a lot of ways, but
I think it in a lot of ways it was good. I mean, the ideas percolated. I don't think we ever would have done it in the way we've done it without that. Yeah, the beta rules, and then there was actually a lot of great feedback on the beta rules, which led to the gamma rules. But like we fixed a lot of, I can't remember what weapon it was. There's some weapon you said you left out of the beta rules. Like it was just a lot of stuff that
like a weird. It was a weird one, like battle axes or something crazy like that. Like why would you leave that out?
Right.
But like. Nobody, I'm talking about like an extensive play test, and no one was like, "Oh, you can't use a battle axe in this game," So,
well, Chris, to your point, I mean, Xcrawl is naturally made for tournaments. Brendan, I feel like you ran 2 or 3 or 4 tournaments in the maybe 3.5 or Pathfinder era at Gen Con.
We did them in both. We had that one that Jason Little ran, the Phoenix Crawl Open.
That's right. Yeah, way back when. Yeah,
fantastic dungeon. Like he's so good. That was a hip dungeon. We did it again like last year. Erica worked on it. Big Sean. We had the toy box room, and that one that was like here's a misstep. That one had the Slender Man in it, and then like a month after it got published, that terrible incident happened where those people were trying to get the Slender Man's attraction and committed a real crime. I was like, ooh, sure. I had no idea.
Yeah. So we did during COVID, was it a year or 2 ago? We did the Save Xcrawl online tournament.
The online tournament, yes. I remember that. So
and that I think would be great for Gen Con next year if we can adapt that to, physical in person. Like, so if you're watching this, you're an Xcrawl fan, if things go well, try to have the books out by next Gen Con and have like an Xcrawl tournament live at the con, which would be amazing.
Yeah, 100%. I would love to do that. So, yeah, and like we did several tournaments, and it just lends itself to tournaments. I mean, this is a tournament where you can actually in game have a referee come up and yellow card you. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's solid. You know what I mean? Like, like we don't have to come up with artificial rules. Why can't I use a Mighty D to cut a guy's nose off in a thing? Because for this particular thing, you've gotten your instructions and you're going to get yellow carded. And so that's
no nose cutting.
No nose cutting. There was like OSHA got involved, so
yeah, that'd be awesome. I think Save Xcrawl would work great, and we should totally do like an Xcrawl tournament.
I'm in.
Now, that reminds me. So one of the things I always loved about Xcrawl, I mean, you have to make it to the end, right? But then we talked about this on the other stream with Foxy, but like everybody loves stats, right? We're all gamers. And a lot of baseball guys have RBIs and all that kind of stuff. It'd be so cool to do something like that for Xcrawl, and you tried it. Maybe you remind everybody what you tried, and I think it was Third or Pathfinder. It didn't work, and we're still trying to think of something for Xcrawl Classics.
And actually, in the 3rd edition version, there was actually a setup thing in there for you to actually figure out what your character's actual stats would be, and it was like a Scantron sheet.
Stats.
No,
this is say not like ability score. This is more like sporting stats.
Like your baseball stats,
Yeah.
So it would be however it played out. Like you would know what percentage of the time you hit fighting against hobgoblins in Indiana. Like you could just sort of endlessly crunch it. And I'm a tinkerer. I tinker with extant stuff rather than I really worked the stat thing. I thought about it. I had it in there. It was universally reviled. No one liked it, and because it was
like homework. It's like having homework at the gaming table.
You don't have it when in sports. They literally have a room full of people going, okay, he missed that one, and make a note on a piece of paper, or that's an RBI, or whatever, and they're crunching. They got spreadsheets. You don't want to do that in the middle of a game. It was, so we're still trying to figure out what to do to make that look like sports and to make like an Xcrawl league feel really real. So that is the thing that I am working on in my head. Yeah, Rihanna says it's a good idea, yes, but it slowed down my game. You're at 100%, and I'm ready to, I'm ready to figure out how that has to look. So we'll figure something out. We're working on it, So
yeah, we got what they said in Indiana Jones, top men. We got top men working on this.
Top men on it. Yeah, I'm gonna have Chris Doyle himself has pledged himself for this project. Chris is a mathematical genius. Math. Did you not know? Chris is Chris is thinking about Pythagorean theorem right now.
There's a reason why I'm doing what I'm doing now. It's because there's not that much math involved. I do have a math friend though that probably would really get into that. What about checkboxes? Checkboxes on your character sheet every time you hit.
That's what it was.
It was, and
it was like a Scantron sheet where you'd bubble crit, hit, miss, or fumble.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And then so every time, and then for like spells, it was like spell worked, spell nat 20, spell 1, and then or however it worked out.
It would be cool though to have an announcer like on the final table of the tournament to say, and then Bubba the Barbarian is swinging at 77%, hitting it, he's critting
exactly
13% of the time. That would be pretty cool. And
it's like perfect for Xcrawl if we could somehow figure it out.
It would literally take an extra person at the table just with a piece of paper for each person or a spreadsheet and making notes, because it was really and then like if you forget, let's say you get caught up in the action and you forget for a while, these asterisks, the whole game had asterisks, you know what I'm saying? So
you
need a DJ minion.
Maybe this is what we could use AI for here at Goodman Games. We use like an Alexa that like it doesn't like make it up.
So
all right, so I'm going to take a brief commercial break from Xcrawl to talk about Grim2's traps, and this somehow seems appropriate, and we'll circle back to Xcrawl because we have 20 minutes to go. We'll circle back in a sec, but this is so for the audience at large, we run Kickstarters and crowdfunding here at Goodman Games. And I can't tell you, we used to just literally launch them with little preparation. I mean, we prepared, but little like announcements. Now we give a little more notice. But so many people now ask me, like, we just got back from Gen Con, like, what's the next project? What's the next project? So what we're gonna start doing is actually announce the projects way far in advance, like a couple months out. And then you know what's coming. We're not saying we're gonna launch it right now, but we're actually gonna tell you now what the next crowdfunding is gonna be, probably launching in November-ish once we fulfill DCC 100 and hopefully a couple of the others that are on their way to the printer right now. And that next one is going to be Grimtooth Traps. So we're going to talk for 5 minutes about this, just so you guys know what's coming. Then we'll circle back to Xcrawl. But Chris, you want to talk through some of the Grimtooth stuff that's coming up?
Sure. I can't see the graphics though because I don't have a third screen. But anyway, I could just talk about Grimtooth Traps. So for those who don't know, Grimtooth Traps has been around since the 80s. It was when it first came out, and it was cool because it was a system neutral book. It was basically, and there was actually 6 books, all said and done, and a couple other side books as well. But it was basically just traps, and it was just the traps were described very tongue in cheek. But there were no stats involved. There was just a simple skull rating from 1 to 5, and I think one of the books actually brought traps to a level 6, I think. But basically, that was just like the lethality of it. A 1 was not that dangerous, more of a nuisance, and a 5 was like, you were going to lose body parts, basically, or your entire body. But it was a fascinating product, and back in the 80s, it was fascinating to discover it, because again, you just thought everything was done by TSR back then. It was clearly it was a D&D product, but it was suitable for other lines as well. And if folks remember back in, Joe, do you remember what year it was? Was it 2013 or something, when
something like that, about 10-11 years ago, maybe? Yeah, we did the big book.
Yes,
yeah.
Where we took all of the Grimtooth books and we compiled them, rescanned them, cleaned them up and everything, and put them in a book. But so what's really different about this version? Well, let me tell you what's different about this version is we actually have stats this time. We statted this out for DCC RPG, and we statted it out for 5e. So even when we reprinted this book, whatever, 8 or 9 years ago, it didn't have any stats. It was just the book as is. So we're basically taking these traps, taking the feel and the theme of the traps, but we're repackaging them for the modern gamer. So you can bring it to your game table and open up the book and run it with the stat line of your choice, either DCC or 5e. So we love that.
And Chris, it's not everyone. It's like the top. I think we did the top 150. Like we picked our, because after 6 or 7 books, they started. Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yeah, I was just getting that part. So this book
This is still warming up.
I know. Oh, yeah. It's like I had the whole thing. You can sit down on my little agenda here. No, so this was so when we reprinted everything, we just reprinted the entire book. So this time we went through. We're pulling traps from volumes 1 and volume 2, and in volume 1 and volume 2, there was 101 traps in each of those books. We're pulling the quote unquote 150 best as determined by Michael Curtis and myself. We went through the books, we pulled them out, we looked at every single trap, and we're like, would these be really good for 5e and or DCC? Some of them are really good for DCC, some of them are really good for 5e, but we're giving you the stats for both. And we kind of called out all those, I won't say the weaker ones, but some of the traps were really just kind of silly off the wall. So we kind of, we really kind of focusing in on what are going to be very usable at the game table, because we want people to be able to drop these into their game, whatever game it is, and play with them and actually enjoy them. So that was kind of our goal with this. And let me tell you, this was a lot of fun. Yes. Somebody on this call might have converted some of those traps, and some of them might have had a really good time. So
I did.
Yeah, it was fun. All of the writers, and we had a team of writers for both of them. And can I tell them this, Joe? It's like they're already all converted and written. So as of today, so we are like way ahead of the game. This is the new way we're doing things at Goodman Games now. It's like, it's like in the can when we get to launch day, basically. So we're super excited. All of the writers that we tapped to work on both sides of the house for this had an absolute blast of reworking these traps and just seeing them from a different light and saying, wow, this thing was created, literally 30, 40 years ago. how would a modern gamer, want to use this at the game table now? And they just had a blast actually kind of putting their own spin on it. So we are super excited about this product.
Yeah, it was super fun to work on, and I did some of the trap conversions into Dungeon Crawl Classic stats, and it was a great fun math challenge for a lot of, like, not math challenge, but like a design challenge where I was like, oh, what's this actually going to look like and such. I learned a lot, like, in the corrections I got after I turned my first thing in, I made a separate file, like, oh, this is so clever, you know what I mean, like. The traps are really their own wonderful aspect of any dungeon delve RPG, and obviously Grimtooth is like the ultimate flowering of that in a lot of ways. So to see some of the really cool ones, like, to figure out what would it actually look like in game, what would it actually, how would that actually play out, was like super fun. And I loved working on this project. I really enjoyed it, and was very happy to have been a part of it.
Yeah, it was
And I
really
gotta
like giving
mention-
them the treatment of almost like we did with the monster book, but for the traps, basically giving the traps their own kind of stat box kind of deal, and really making them, just be extremely useful. And it's a fun read, first of all. And that was the original book, was kind of that, a fun read. You probably didn't use many of those, but now it's a fun read and it's extremely useful product. So we're very
And it still has the original Grimtooth illustrations and the original Grimtooth tone as a narrator.
Yes.
And I love the comment in here from Son of Albion, including traps statted for XCC and MCC. Like, Brendan, I don't know if we could do, like, fame implications if you're embarrassed in some trap that, like, somehow does something to you, or I don't know, like, there might be one there to somehow
some fools about to get embarrassed to death. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh, but that's the beauty of this. I think a lot of these traps do work very, very well for Xcrawl Classics and Mutant Crawl Classics as well, where you could easily work them into your thing. And we're even talking, you could do an entire Xcrawl adventure that's basically just one trap after another, and basically try to survive, and that's who wins.
DJ Grimtooth. That could be good.
I mean,
there might be something there.
Absolutely. Yeah, I like to see the third generation. It should be like Grim Tina's kid, Grim Ted or something like that.
That's actually Grim Ted. That's really funny. TJ Grim Ted.
The third generation comes up and is like, oh no, we got to put a modern spin on it. Like, everything's got a trap cam. You know what I mean? So, like, there's this thief is doing
it. Great idea.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right, so we got 12 minutes left in Xcrawl Classics.
12 minutes.
The trap of infernal pantsing.
I love that. That needs to happen. Oh my gosh, that's incredible.
The trap cam, Grim Ted with the trap can and infernal pantsing. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, it is. It's fun to try to, like, in your own stuff, try to, like, walk that line of, like, how close to Grimtooth can I get where I'm not aping them, but it is in the spirit of that, where it's like something that, like, after it hits, your players are like, what? You know what I mean? Like, the hallway did what? Like,
exactly.
or whatever, so I don't know. It's delightful.
I like a box of exploding glitter on porch trap. I'm sure you've all seen Mark Rober on YouTube with his, like, you guys have seen this, right? His glitter bomb traps. They're so they're so funny. He's done like 4 of them now. My kids are addicted to these videos. But Brendan, he did one. This is actually kind of Xcrawlish. He, as a child, he apparently always wanted to swim in a swimming pool full of Jello. And now that he's a YouTube millionaire, he actually researched how to do this. And it turns out to get that much Jello to set properly, you need the right altitude and climate. And so he bought a house. He's a physicist, former NASA physicist. He did all this research onto the perfect place to set a swimming pool full of Jello. And he bought a house in Colorado that it was at the right elevation and the right climate to pull this off. And they did a whole video about how he pulled off making a swimming pool full of Jello, which is actually very hard to get it to, like, set properly at the right temperature with that much Jello. And then he threw a Jello swimming pool party. It's really funny. Anyway, you can work in, like, a Jello swimming pool I don't know what
of death.
Somehow of death.
Acidic Jello. Yeah.
Like it would be like 98% Jello and 2% green slime.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's
You just get like an itch. You're like, why am I itching?
Starts as an itch, and then you don't have an arm.
That's pretty funny.
Yep.
Awesome.
Lattice cubes hitting the chat.
Yeah.
So last 10 minutes of the Kickstarter. I don't know what I'm like verklempt. I just want to say big thanks. Huge thanks to everybody who supported the Kickstarter, and for everybody who shared the links around and who wrote me nice notes and encouraging stuff. I'm super grateful to everybody who came to bat, who offered their support, and who really made this a very, very, very exciting time for me. This is really the culmination of a lot of years of a lot of work, and to see it like hit this stage, it's overwhelming. It's so great to get here and to be able to see, like, here we are, light at the end of the tunnel. This is going to come to life. It's going to be what it is, and I just couldn't be more happy. So just huge thanks to everybody for being for supporting and for being a part of this, and just it's very, very meaningful to me, and I truly hope you all love it.
And thank you, Brendan, for creating Xcrawl way back then, and the long journey it is. And thanks to Joe for publishing it a couple of
Joseph
times.
Goodman, the founder of the Feast.
Yes.
Let me let it go on and on. So huge thanks.
No, but thanks to all the fans. I mean, we basically get to do what we love for a living. I remember actually Wayne Snyder at Gen Con said, it was a dream of his to go to Gen Con, and now he's been 2, 3, 4 times. But he made it comment. He was like, yeah, what would 12-year-old Wayne have thought when he was reading Dragon magazine, wondering about Gen Con, and now he's driving the Wizard van there? It's like, it's just for all of us, this is a chance to do what we love every day. And it's pretty cool. And we can only do it because other people also like what we love and are willing to buy our books. So thank you, everybody, for buying our stuff. It really does make a difference.
Yeah,
it's fun reading the comments in the chat. Yeah.
I'm trying to catch up and say thanks to everybody, but I keep floating back. So, but seriously,
Brandon,
huge thanks to everybody.
You're gonna need a nap after this. I mean,
I'm so tired
for like 30 days. Brendan has done like more interviews and more like media appearances in the last 30 days than probably the previous 2 years, 5 years combined, something like that.
Like, absolutely. I said I'm gonna like take 2 weeks off, a moratorium on speaking about myself. Like, I'm just not gonna. I got nothing to say. You know what I mean? I hope I don't get pulled over. Cop's gonna be like, how fast you were going? I'm like, you know what? I'm just done talking about the whole Brendan thing. So just do write me some stuff.
Take me away.
You know what I mean? Just do it. I'm invoking that right to remain silent. Thank you.
Sounds like Brendan could use 24 hours of solitary confinement.
I know, just like a quiet.
Do you need a dark room? Is that what it is? So.
I was thinking of like what do they call that? You get in and it's like it cuts your sense. It's a sensory deprivation
sensory
tank.
deprivation. The dark room.
Yeah.
Like, I'm ready to go for the record. Like, see how many,
Yeah. I like the comment in the chat. Has anyone asked if their book is shipped yet? I guarantee we'll get a Kickstarter message tomorrow being like, I played for Xcrawl. I saw that it hasn't shipped yet. Yeah.
It's going to be
we'll forward those to you.
Thank you. Do that. That would be great. You know what I'm saying? So,
actually, brief update for those of you wondering: the DCC 100 is actually landed at the various fulfillment centers, and we got confirmation from UK and Australia, and the US. I'm pretty sure it's there according to tracking, but they're like recovering from Gen Con. So I think DCC 100 will probably start shipping. Like, usually what they do is next week they'll print out the labels and collate the boxes and prepare everything. They'll probably start shipping the following week, which is awesome. And then Dark Tower is almost at the printer. You guys have the printer proofs or the pre-printer proofs to review, and we'll send it to the printer probably into next week once we make all the edits. And Dungeon Denizens, we're getting layout pages coming in. So it's all moving fast, folks. We're getting a lot of fulfillment done.
Yep.
So it is okay to email us and say, when is my book shipping for those other projects? Just not yet, Xcrawl. We can't print it that fast.
Yeah, but but I'll tell you what though, I feel like going into the Kickstarter, I feel like it's very strong. All the adventures are ready to go. As far as like the conceptual stuff. They've all been play tested, and I'm starting to see the art for stuff. Like, there's a lot of art is ready to go now, and there's been some amazing pieces from from
two or
all
three of them
our
are already
favorites.
in layout. Like a lot of the art's done. Several of the adventures are already in layout. I think the core book's already in layout, if I remember right from Matt. Like it's moving fast,
Yeah.
so I'm hoping we get it at the printer within like 6 weeks or so, and get a full, lickety split.
Oh, yeah. I think about an earlier Kickstarter that I worked on like after it was over, y'all reached out. Well, I got reached out to, and it was like, hey, would you write this adventure? And it was like, you know what I mean? Like, so that was like so I didn't even start thinking about it until a week after the Kickstarter ended. You know what I'm saying? So every one of the adventures are all at least ramped up to this level. You know what I'm saying? So it's very, very cool. So I couldn't be more excited. And I cannot wait for this to be in people's hands. I'm so looking forward to y'all having this and and playing it. I always say my goal has always been I want Xcrawl to be everyone's third favorite game. Like there's the game you came up with, your campaign one that you constantly play, and then like Xcrawl for rainy days, weird situations, and whatnot. But it's my favorite, so it could be a couple of people's very favorite game too. So hopefully, I don't know.
So Brendan, once this is printed, I mean, obviously you'll run some Xcrawl and stuff, but what's next for you? Like, if this is that 20-year journey sort of coming to a nice close.
You know what? I think it depends on a lot of things, but hopefully there will be more Xcrawl adventures. I have like the campaign arc of the Xcrawl world planned out in my head for however long. You know what I'm saying? But the first thing I want to do would be to make up some make a major shake up to the Xcrawl cosmology. You know what I'm saying? So that I want to do that. Like I have an idea for that. Like what would the interior life of the North American Empire gets shaken up, and it has repercussions for Xcrawl. And then I got a couple of regular DCC adventures I want to pitch. I got a first level adventure.
You've always got like 5, and you've run each of them 20 times at cons over the last year. It's like, I mean, Brendan's the only person who goes when he's like, I got an idea for an adventure. I've actually played such it 17 times in the last year. And it's not even like written down yet. Yeah. It's like amazing.
Well, I did a new Xcrawl adventure that I ran. I ran it in the UK. I ran it for the UK Game Expo for the first time. And then it was the only adventure I ran at Gen Con. I ran it like 7 times. So that's on like 10 now. And I feel pretty good about that. Like I made some changes on the car ride home in my head. Yeah, boy, it's just Planet Caravan. That's one of the ones I want to pitch. My Planet Caravan adventure. Oh, I really want to see that. Have you got an XCC adventure based off a Black Sabbath title yet, Nick?
Oh, you should tell people about your was it your triptych? Remember your 3 adventures that you wanted to do? Now I'm blanking on the name. Not Neon Nights, but
Oh, the other Xcrawl ones. I've got now. Oh, it's so beyond that now. I've got like 6 that I run. Beyond the two Black Sabbath DCC adventures I run that are already out. There's Neon Nights and there's Hole in the Sky, of course. And then I'm running. I'm running Planet Caravan. I've been running. That's ready to go. Symptom of the Universe, ready to go. Behind the Wall of Sleep, ready to go. Into the Void. That one needs some developing still. Actually, that one's so chaotic. That's like imagine you a sandbox adventure, and the sandbox is the universe. It's
a little big. Yeah, give it another 20 or 30 play tests at cons this year, and I'm sure it'll work itself out.
Yeah, it'll get there. It'll get there.
Yeah,
I always have fun with it, but it's Julian said that the one time it did it went so far afield that it had nothing to do with the original adventure conception. That's hard to write. That's way easier to do at a table than it is to put down in 10,000 words. So
yeah. Wait, so Kickstarter for me just flipped over to the second countdown. Are you guys getting seconds?
Oh.
Yep, I'm 98.
And when we do these shows, like they're all off by like a second or two. So we need to, Brendan, why don't you do the official countdown and we'll just align to your count in case our browsers are off by a second or two.
All right.
When we get to like 20 or something, you can like start your countdown.
All right, cool. All right. Well, then what else to say? But huge thanks to everybody who helped us get here. That's Brett and Allison Brooks. That's my parents. That's my wife. That's Joseph, Michael Curtis, for God's sakes, huge, big help. Brett and Allison Brooks, who I mentioned already one time. All of the play testers.
All the cats.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they've been a great help, especially trying to sit on my keyboard while I'm doing stuff. How about, blocking me from making coffee in the morning while I'm trying to get revved up to write some stuff. No, I love them. And you know, to everybody who supported over the years, all the people who sat down and to play my bizarre game with its bizarre premise and treated it really seriously and added to my headcanon of Xcrawl, I cannot thank any of y'all enough. So you know, it's just been wonderful, and I couldn't be, you know, like I said, it's the end here, it's the fruition of it all, but it's just like, you know, it's like it's very satisfying and very pleasing to me, and yeah, so now we're down to seconds. So you're ready for this countdown?
Yeah,
Yes.
let's do the countdown. You lead.
12, 11,
7,
10,
10,
9,
9,
8,
8,
6,
7,
5, 4,
4,
3,
3,
2,
Get that.
2,
1.
1.
A round number.
Oh, it makes little little blow up
exactly.
things.
Exactly a
that's-
round number.
Exactly 236. How about that? That doesn't happen
That's
very often.
crazy.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That never happens. That's
Yeah,
nuts.
how weird
I
is
know.
that? Oh, that's so crazy.
Whoever pushed us to that number, thank you. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Wow, that's insane. That's so easy to remember.
Yeah. Woohoo.
Well, when we started,
I can't believe
234,
that.
234. So they kept talking
Yeah.
about that, but
You tell you what, the
Dude.
number that really lights me up is that there were 1,592 backers. That's amazing. The idea that there would be 1,592 people out there running campaigns for 1,592 times 3, 4, 5 players. That that lights me up. So please get this game and please play it and run it, because I think you'll really enjoy it.
all right. Now, when's my package going to arrive? I backed this.
Yes.
Yeah,
We
haven't
gotta
I
get
got
to
this
work
yet?
back to fulfilling it.
Yeah.
I know.
Here come the angry memes like this afternoon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That feeling you get when you haven't got your Xcrawl book yet. And, you know, like,
Exactly. No, but thanks
know-
everybody for supporting it.
Yes.
It's awesome to see Xcrawl come into its own in this version. It's going to be great.
yeah, huge thanks all.
All right, cool.
And seriously,
Brendan, I don't know about you.
know,
I need to take a nap.
yeah.
Who plans this kind of Kickstarter right on top of Gen Con? Who does that?
I know, right? No, but you know what though? Honestly, it dovetailed beautifully, because like we got to run a bunch of Xcrawl where we were there. People got excited about it. We were handing out stuff. It was just like, so it really worked out beautifully. It was just a lot of work. And yeah, I'm ready for like for my traditional post-work shot of Jägermeister. So
The day's over. Take the rest of the day off. It's noon.
yeah.
No, you did a ton over the last month. Thank you for everything you did to
No,
spread the word on Xcrawl.
it was
It's been
my
awesome.
pleasure. My absolute pleasure. All right, y'all. We ready to call this one? We're gonna rock out of here.
I think so. Thanks everybody for watching.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Catch you next time.
All right.